The Brown family has reached a point where nothing feels the same anymore. What once looked like a united, complicated, but functioning family has now turned into distance, confusion, and silence. For years, the kids looked up to their father. His voice carried weight, his choices shaped everything around them. But the moment these children began asking real questions, everything started to fall apart, especially for Kody. Truly's relationship with Kody was always unusual. She learned early on that protecting her heart meant creating distance, even if others didn't fully understand. Sometimes the safest path is stepping away, and that's what she quietly chose. And now the patience of the older kids is gone. Multiple sources confirm that some of Kody's adult children have told producers directly that they do not want to be filmed anymore. Some have gone as far as threatening to completely walk away from the show. This isn't a small rebellion, this is a major turning point. These grown kids are deciding that protecting their emotional well-being is more important than staying in a series that often exposed their most painful moments. For years, cameras never captured the full truth of what happened between the kids and their father. Editing, story shaping, and selective filming painted a very different picture. The real issues, favoritism, neglect, and broken promises, mostly happened off camera. Gabe and Garrison spoke out, but even their words only scratched the surface. Production didn't help. At times, producers intentionally created tension, pushing for emotional reactions, turning vulnerable moments into entertainment. For the kids, already struggling with a family falling apart, this wasn't just uncomfortable, it was deeply damaging. There were specific incidents that finally broke them. Private family moments they believed were off-limits suddenly appeared on camera. Some were asked to comment on their parents' divorce, forced to expose their emotions in front of millions. Anyone who refused was pushed again and again. And once episodes aired, clever editing twisted their words, making relationships seem worse or different than they actually were. Legal issues made everything even messier. When they were minors, their parents signed contracts for them. Now that they're adults, escaping those agreements isn't simple. A few of them consulted attorneys, but the financial and legal barriers were huge. The toll on their mental health has been enormous. Growing up under public judgment, every awkward moment, every argument, every heartbreak broadcast to millions, it leaves long-term scars. Some dealt with trauma not only from the cameras but from the family's strict religious expectations and the pressure to appear perfect. A clear pattern has formed over time. The older kids withdrew quietly, sharing small pieces of their stories online. But now a new wave of resistance is happening. The adult children are demanding distance from the cameras. This isn't impulsive anger. This is them reclaiming control, privacy, and emotional safety. Their rebellion raises serious questions about the future of sister wives. If the adult kids refuse to appear, the show's entire foundation changes. TLC and the producers face a tough decision: respect boundaries or risk bad publicity. Money complicates everything. The show is the main source of income for the Brown family. For the adult children, the emotional price, the lack of privacy, the mental strain, it's simply too high. Those who are financially independent are taking a stand. Those who still rely on the show are stuck in a difficult position. Production companies might argue that contracts exist and tension is part of reality TV. But the power imbalance is obvious. And morally, the question remains, is emotional exploitation acceptable just for profit? So what happens next? Several things are possible. Some kids may disappear from filming entirely. Legal battles might unfold behind the scenes. More unfiltered stories may come out online. And if key family members refuse to participate, Sister Wives could be nearing its end. What's certain now is this: the Brown children are drawing a line. They want ownership of their lives, their narrative, and their mental peace. This isn't just frustration. It's a long overdue move to protect themselves and step out of a story they no longer want to be trapped in. The Brown family has reached a point where nothing feels the same anymore. What once seemed like a close-knit, complicated family has now transformed into tension, distance, and quiet struggles. The children once looked up to their father, relying on his guidance and judgment for almost everything. But as they grew older, questions began to arise. And suddenly being a father wasn't as straightforward for Kody as it used to be. Truly's relationship with Kody is a perfect example of this complexity. She stepped back, not out of rebellion, but to preserve the connection she valued. By creating some distance, she maintained the bond without compromising her own emotional safety. Sometimes, stepping away is the only way to protect yourself. Now, the patience of the Brown children seems to have run out. Several adult children have reportedly told producers they no longer want to be filmed. And some have even suggested they might leave the show entirely. This is more than a disagreement. It's a statement that they are taking control of their own lives, their mental health, privacy, and personal boundaries now outweigh any potential exposure or financial gain. For years, the cameras never captured the full truth of what was happening behind the scenes. Reality television is never fully real. Producers craft stories, select footage, and build narratives that often leave out the subtle realities, moments of favoritism, neglect, or family tension. Even public statements by children like Garrison or Gabriel only show a fraction of the truth. There are reports that production sometimes created tension intentionally. Kids were put in emotionally charged situations, which were filmed for entertainment purposes rather than simply documented. For children already coping with trauma, this often felt exploitative. Specific incidents reportedly pushed the children over the edge. Private family gatherings they thought would remain off camera were suddenly filmed. Some children were asked to comment on their parents' divorces, forced to reveal private emotions to millions. Others refused, insisting their personal experiences shouldn't be public content. Editing sometimes misrepresented their words, making them seem to support positions they did not hold, which added to their frustration. Legal complications made the situation even harder. As minors, their parents signed contracts granting producers extensive rights. Now, as adults, stepping away from those agreements is neither easy nor cheap. Even with resources, navigating these contracts is complicated. The mental and emotional impact has been enormous. Growing up under constant public scrutiny leaves a lasting toll. Every awkward moment, every argument, and every painful event has been broadcast and judged by millions. Some children also struggled with religious and cultural pressures, adding more stress to an already difficult childhood. A generational divide is becoming clear. Older children quietly withdrew from the spotlight, building lives largely outside the show's narrative. Others maintain a social media presence, sharing carefully curated glimpses of their lives. But a newer group of adult children is demanding full space, refusing to participate in filming altogether. Their stance is about self-respect, privacy, and reclaiming authority over their own lives. This resistance also raises major questions about the future of sister wives. Without the participation of adult children, the show could lose its central dynamic, leaving only Kody, Robin, and a few willing participants. TLC now faces a challenge: respect boundaries or risk bad publicity, and further withdrawal from the family. Money is also a factor. The show has been a main source of income for the Brown family, but the adult children are weighing emotional and psychological costs against any financial gain. Those financially independent can set boundaries, while others feel trapped between privacy and necessity. Producers may argue that contracts and the nature of reality TV justify filming. Yet the imbalance of power is obvious, and the ethical question remains: is it right to prioritize profit over the mental well-being of children who never truly consented to being on camera? This isn't impulsive defiance. It's a long overdue assertion of autonomy. The Brown children are claiming control over their lives, and their voices are now impossible to ignore. Whether this marks a decline in the show or a shift in the family's involvement, one fact remains clear: they are no longer passive participants in a story they didn't choose. As the cameras continued rolling over the years, what viewers saw on screen was only a fraction of reality. Behind closed doors, the tension between Kody and his children often ran far deeper than any episode could capture. Sources suggest that some confrontations were so raw and emotional that producers deliberately left them out of the show. Certain arguments, tears, and moments of frustration never made it to television because they didn't fit the narrative or were too uncomfortable to broadcast. One recurring issue was favoritism. The children noticed patterns in how attention and praise were distributed. Some felt consistently overlooked, while others received approval more readily. These small, repeated slights, though invisible to viewers, created a growing undercurrent of resentment. Over time, this invisible weight compounded, and the children began questioning not only the fairness of their father, but also their participation in a show that seemed to exploit their emotions. Several incidents reportedly served as tipping points. One involved a family gathering that was assumed to be private. The children arrived expecting intimate moments with family, only to discover cameras and production crews already in place. Feeling ambushed, many felt their trust had been violated. Another involved requests for children to provide reaction clips about their parents' breakups. These requests asked them to reveal vulnerability in front of a mass audience. Some declined, arguing that their grief and reflections were not entertainment. Yet they were repeatedly approached until frustration reached a boiling point. In addition, editing played a significant role in heightening the children's frustration. Statements made in one context were often rearranged to create dramatic tension, sometimes implying that a child sided with one parent over another or endorsed a position. they never actually held. Attempts to address these distortions were met with reminders that editorial decisions were out of their control. A clause embedded in the contract signed when they were minors. Legal and contractual complexities created another layer of pressure. When the Brown children first appeared on Sister Wives, they were minors, meaning their parents legally consented on their behalf. These agreements granted production companies extensive rights over their images, stories, and participation. Now, as adults, disentangling themselves is not as simple as saying, "I'm done." Some have consulted attorneys, only to realize that legal processes are time-consuming, expensive, and uncertain. Financial factors also contributed to their hesitation. Reality television is a business, and the children's participation often came with compensation. But as adults, many began evaluating whether the emotional cost, privacy invasion, and mental toll outweighed the financial benefits. Reports suggest that some children who tried to resist filming faced reduced opportunities or alterations in compensation, creating a pressure-filled environment where asserting boundaries came at a tangible cost. The psychological impact of growing up on camera cannot be overstated. Childhood and adolescence are formative periods typically navigated away from public scrutiny. For the Brown children, every awkward moment, every argument, every heartbreak was broadcast to millions. Some openly admitted to feeling like they were performing versions of themselves, rather than living authentically. Even daily interactions carried the weight of public judgment, leaving emotional scars that only intensified over time. Religious and familial expectations added additional pressure. Raised in a fundamentalist polygamous environment, the children faced unique challenges even without cameras. The presence of a nationwide audience amplified these pressures, magnifying the scrutiny of personal choices, relationships, and spiritual decisions. Some children eventually distanced themselves not only from the cameras but from the faith itself, citing the combination of personal experience and public portrayal as influential factors. Grief also played a crucial role. Watching parents' relationships unravel in real time is already traumatic for any child. But the Brown children endured this while being filmed and asked to comment publicly. Typically, children of divorce have the support of private conversations, therapy, and family discussions. The Brown children, however, had to navigate these challenges while the world watched, turning normal emotional processing into a public spectacle. Generational differences within the family have shaped responses to filming. Older children quietly stepped away from the show, building independent lives with minimal interference from cameras. Others maintained selective public presence, using platforms like YouTube or social media to control their narrative on their own terms. The newer group of adult children demanding full privacy represents a more radical shift, rejecting the curated storytelling that has defined Sister Wives for years. This rebellion reflects a broader trend in reality television. Participants who began filming as minors are now asserting rights that should have been theirs from the start. They are challenging the industry's assumptions about consent, privacy, and emotional exploitation. Their pushback is not mere defiance. It is a necessary act of self-preservation, an attempt to reclaim agency over lives that were once largely controlled by contracts and producers. Financial realities and creative control collide in this environment. Producers have invested heavily in the franchise, and the Brown family has relied on the show for income. Yet the conflict between monetary gain and personal well-being has become increasingly visible. Many adult children are now making decisions that prioritize mental health and autonomy over exposure and profit, fundamentally shifting the family dynamic and potentially the show's future. Despite years of exposure, the public has never seen the full extent of what the Brown children endured. Multiple insiders confirmed that some of the most intense and emotional moments were deliberately excluded from the show. Scenes of raw confrontation, tearful arguments, and tense exchanges with Kody often never made it to air, because producers feared they were too revealing or didn't fit the season's storyline. One of the recurring points of friction was pressure to take sides. During divorces and family disputes, producers often sought sound bites that could create drama or imply favoritism. Children were subtly and sometimes overtly encouraged to publicly choose a parent, despite feeling uncomfortable and conflicted. Those who resisted often faced repeated attempts to get them on camera, creating a sense of frustration and exploitation. Financial and contractual entanglements added another layer of stress. The children, having signed agreements as minors through their parents, discovered as adults that stepping away was far more complicated than expected. Legal experts note that many reality TV contracts contain clauses extending beyond childhood, often requiring participation to maintain relationships with family members still on the show. This created a situation where children who wanted privacy were legally constrained, leaving them feeling trapped. Some adult children reportedly explored legal options, but the cost, time, and uncertainty made full withdrawal difficult, adding to the pressure. A few sources claimed that children who tried to assert boundaries experienced reductions in compensation or lost opportunities for paid appearances, reinforcing a sense of exploitation. Mental health effects were profound. Growing up on camera leaves little room for private emotional development. Every awkward phase, every family conflict, and every moment of grief became public property. The children often described feeling like they were performing roles, rather than living authentically. Public scrutiny extended beyond television, social media commentary, fan expectations, and public recognition added continuous stress. Religious upbringing compounded the pressures. Raised in a fundamentalist polygamous environment, the children already faced unique challenges. Adding a national audience amplified scrutiny, making every choice, every mistake, and every act of rebellion public. Some children chose to step away from the faith itself, citing both personal reflection and the show's portrayal of their upbringing as influencing factors. The family's internal dynamics and generational differences shaped participation. Older children quietly removed themselves from filming, while some selectively shared aspects of their lives online. Others, particularly younger adult children, have chosen to completely withdraw, asserting control over their narrative and refusing to participate in a system they feel has exploited their emotions for profit. Public statements from the children reveal glimpses of their frustration. Some have spoken about feeling misrepresented on the show or exploited by storylines. Others have limited social media activity or directly requested fans to respect their privacy. The silence from some children who were previously visible suggests that the reported warnings to producers may be the culmination of a long process of asserting boundaries. Financial realities further complicate the situation. Sister Wives has been a primary source of income for the family, funding lifestyles, homes, and education. As adults, the children are reevaluating whether the financial benefits are worth the emotional and psychological costs. Some who are financially independent are asserting boundaries, while others may feel compelled to continue participation due to economic necessity. From a production perspective, contracts and reality TV norms are cited as justification for continued filming.